everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar on managing your attachments and mapping your GIS architecture. This is our second of our spatial solution series. For those who haven't heard yet, we are planning to do these on a regular basis, so you can expect to see webinars from GEO Jobe on almost every month now. So if you haven't started to sign up for our newsletters for notifications about that, I highly encourage that you do so. But let me go ahead and get things kicked off for us here. So first thing, I would like to address a couple of housekeeping points. The first thing I would like to mention is that we do have chat enabled. Please feel free to use that to engage with us throughout the webinar. That being said, if you do have any specific questions for us, I would recommend utilizing the Q&A, which is also enabled, and we'll make sure that we get all of those questions addressed. We do have a dedicated Q&A section towards the end of the webinar, so you can expect to see answers both throughout the webinar, but most of them will be directly addressed during that section. Next up, we do appreciate all of you for joining us today. So we do have a Map This bundle that we'll be giving away. So make sure you stay until the end so that you can be entered into that drawing, which will take place sometime next week. I do want to make a couple of introductions here as well. First off, my name is Tony. I'm a customer success manager here at GEO Jobe. I've been working here for a couple of years now, working very closely with our clients to make sure that we can help them achieve their goals for their projects and other needs. I've also got Rachel with us, one of our senior developers.
Hi, I'm Rachel Cohen. I'm a senior application developer here at GEO Jobe. And I've been with GEO Jobe a little over 5 years. I'm based out of Madison, Wisconsin.
Thank you so much, Rachel. She'll be going over the meat of what we were talking about today with managing my attachments. I've also got Karen, who will be in charge of our Q&A today.
Yeah, hi, my name is Karen Henderson. I've been in GIS for about 20 years. I've mostly been focused in the local, state, and federal government and some nonprofits. I've been helping to design and provide management and workflow solutions during that time. And for the last 2 years, I've been at GEO Jobe, and now I'm collaborating with our customers to see how GEO Jobe can best support them.
Thank you so much. So before we dive into the main topic, I just want to make sure that, for those that haven't heard of GEO Jobe before, that I explain a little bit about who we are, what we do, how we've gotten here. So we were originally founded in Nashville, Tennessee by Neil Jobe, where we offered professional services, GIS training, and sold GIS equipment. We have since moved our headquarters down to Gulfport, Mississippi, and redirected our focuses to our services and offering a suite of products to help simplify the lives of GIS users. In fact, our flagship product, Admin Tools, was released in 2014 along with ArcGIS Online. And since then, we have become recognized as having some of the most popular applications on the ArcGIS marketplace. We've also been an Esri business partner since 2002 and are currently a platinum tier partner with them. And so we work very closely with Esri to ensure that our products are always up to date with any new features and applications that they're offering. We've got clients all over the world now, and as you can see by our heat map here, that we've got strong presences in the US, the AU, and the EU, and we're very proud of this because we like I said, we originally started as a small company out of Nashville, Tennessee, and it's just so cool to now be interacting with people all over the world. Now, we do currently have 5 divisions within GEO Jobe, each with its own area of focus. So we have, for instance, our support division, which work daily with our customers to make sure that everything is working appropriately and we're progressing them towards their goals, whether it be through the utilization of our products or our professional services required. Then we also have our GIS services division, which consists of a number of GIS professionals that handle the deployments of Esri's desktop, server, web, and mobile applications. There are a lot of very talented folk that do data creation, staff augmentation, model creation, and really work very closely with their customers. We also have the software development division, and that consists of two teams: the products team, which focuses on the development of all of our GEO Jobe products, and our professional services team, which focuses more on custom software development for web and mobile applications for all of our users that have more specific needs. Then we also have our UAV UAS division, which focuses on collecting and processing geospatial data through the use of UAVs, flying drones, collecting imagery. They do a lot of really cool, really interesting work. And we even have a dedicated LinkedIn page for them. So if you've not checked it out, I highly encourage it. They post some very beautiful pictures. And then lastly, but not least, we have the data science division, and they prepare a lot of geospatial data, including the cleansing, aggregating, and manipulating to perform advanced analysis as needed by our clients, and using machine learning to really delve deep into the data. And so to kick things off for us today, I'd like to start off with a question for everybody. And that is, how many attachments does your ArcGIS Enterprise organization currently have? You know, there's a lot of people I know that have some variants. You know, some might have a few hundred, some a few thousand. And what we plan to go over today will really kind of dive deep into how we've changed the way you can handle those attachments. Also, while people are submitting their responses, I'd be very curious just to kind of see where everybody is joining us from. So if you want to just drop into the chat, you know, the state or region that you're watching from, I'd really appreciate it. And we're just going to give everything a couple of moments here for the poll to get completed. Seeing a couple of familiar names in the chat as well, so appreciate y'all for coming by. Thousands depending upon the project. Yep, I can see that. We definitely have a lot of different variances depending on project scopes and size. So I think then that you also see a lot of good use cases for what we have coming up. So, but now that we've given that a little bit of time, I don't want to hold everybody up too long with it. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready to pass things over to Rachel, who's going to open up Manage My Attachments and kind of walk through all of the things that we've done to provide a lot more power to the users and how those attachments are handled and organized.
So in a previous webinar, we discussed Symphony for ArcGIS. For those of you who were not in the previous webinar or who need a refresher, Symphony is our platform for our dependent applications. We have several dependent applications that are all contained within Symphony. In our earlier webinar, we covered the scheduler for ArcGIS dependent application. Now in this webinar, we're going to cover the two other dependent applications, Manage My Attachments and Architecture Viewer. Now, Scheduler and Architecture Viewer are included with Symphony. So when you buy Symphony, you automatically get Scheduler and Architecture Viewer. Manage My Attachments is a separate license. So you can purchase Symphony with or without Manage My Attachments. If you purchase Manage My Attachments, that's a separate license. How Manage My Attachments came about is we noticed that a lot of our organizations had a problem. Their data stores were getting really bloated. They had hundreds of gigabytes of content. And this was making their data stores less performant. It was making their services not respond as well. It was just making a lot of things hard for them to do. And we did some digging and we realized that for a number of these organizations, a lot of that bloat came from service attachments. And a lot of these service attachments were coming from things like Survey 123s and field maps, where you have, a bunch of people out in the field taking all kinds of pictures of stuff, uploading those to your feature services. And then, those can really accumulate over time. And, we have customers with hundreds of thousands of attachments that are taking up hundreds of gigabytes. And the other issue is that oftentimes when people have that many attachments, it's hard to even get a sense of how many attachments they have. They don't know how many attachments they have. They don't know the total size of their attachments. They don't know what services their attachments are on necessarily, or how many attachments are in which service. They don't know all of the different types of attachments. There's just not good visibility into the attachments, particularly when there's a large quantity of them. So Manage My Attachments was designed to solve these problems. So first of all, its solutions, it provides visibility for attachments with a visual representation, statistics, and easy filtering of attachments data, which I'm going to demonstrate shortly. And then it also allows you to actually reduce the size of your attachments that are images, so JPEGs and PNGs. You can actually reduce the size of those images by compressing them with lossless compression. You can reduce the size up to 70% without losing visual quality. And that allows you to shrink those attachments in place. And by shrinking those attachments, you shrink your data store, but you still have your attachments. They look exactly the same. They can be used exactly the same. Nobody's going to notice a difference, except that your data store is a lot smaller and thus becomes a lot more efficient. So first, in Manage My Attachments, we have our metadata viewer, and this is designed to just give you a sense of what attachments you have. So we have this tree map that breaks down services by attachment size. So you can see for each service, you can see the service with the largest size of attachments takes up the most amount of space. And so that just gives you a visual representation of your services and how attachments are distributed throughout them. This is for our test organization, so we don't have a lot of attachments. We don't have, we don't have the kind of attachments problem that a lot of production organizations have. But, in a lot of production organizations and large organizations, we're seeing, again, hundreds of thousands of total attachments in here, hundreds of gigabytes in here, and, a great many thousands of services with attachments. And then we also have this metadata table where you can see for each attachment, you can see the service that it comes from, the layer ID, the parent object ID, so the object ID of the feature that the attachment's on, the name of the individual attachment, and then you can see its size, and you can also see content type, and you can see the created date if that information is available in the metadata. That information comes with the metadata that's generated by the device that took the image. So it will depend on whether that device is set up to capture that information. So you can see all of your attachments here. You can also see this total size, and you can filter. So for example, let's say we have 2.2 gigabytes of attachments. How many are JPEGs? Okay, 2.2 out of the 2.20 gigabytes out of 2.22 gigabytes of our attachments are JPEGs, which is not unexpected. Let's see videos. Okay, we just got the one video and it's 9.77 megabytes. So this lets you filter your attachments by various properties and then also see the total size taken up by the different kinds of attachments that pass those filters. And then you can also open up here and see the attachment itself as well. We also have this attachments gallery that lets you view your attachments in a gallery format. So you can pick a service, and then you can actually browse through the images themselves. This will show, again, JPEGs and PNGs. If you have an attachment types that are not one of those, you'll still see them here. They'll just be little file icons, and it will indicate what type of attachment it is. So this just gives you a way to actually see the attachments themselves and browse through the images, see the different attachments for a different service. But in addition to that, getting a sense of how many attachments you have is really valuable. But what people really want to do is stop those attachments from taking up so much space. So for that, we have our optimized workflow. We have this workflow builder here. We're going to choose the optimized service attachments. And this sets up what is under the hood as a scheduler task. So we discussed scheduler in a previous seminar and how it creates its tasks. This is a different interface, but it will create a scheduler task, and those scheduler tasks will be accessible as workflows here in Manage My Attachments. They'll also be accessible in Scheduler as well. So you can create a name for your workflow. You're going to select which identity you want to optimize services for. You're going to want to choose which services are going to be processed. So you can have, you might want to have multiple optimized tasks. So you'll see in a minute that you can control the level of optimization that's being performed on the images. So you might want to have one set of services that has one level set for the optimization level and another set of services that has a different level. So you can use filters to choose what services you want to compress images for. And then when we compress the images, the compressed image that's going to be up to 70% smaller is going to be on the service in your organization. But we want to make sure that you also are still able to have the original image at its full size. So in order to do that, before we optimize the attachments that are on the service, we back up copies of the originals. And we can back those up to either cloud storage. We support Amazon S3 or Microsoft Azure cloud storage, or you can also back them up to a local or network drive. And so this ensures that you also are able to, so any attachments that are optimized, you'll be able to restore. So if there's an attachment that you decide later on that you want to return the original to the service, you can easily do it because that original is being backed up. And you can do that with Manage My Attachments, and I'll show that in a minute. So we're going to say we're going to back up to cloud storage. This just requires a local folder location for it to do its processing. We recommend that you enable global IDs on services that don't already have them. So this ensures that we're able to keep that MMA is able to keep track of which attachments go to which features. So if your services don't have global IDs enabled, we can have Manage My Attachments enable them automatically for you. If you choose not to enable global IDs, those services will be skipped for optimization. So it will not optimize them if global IDs are not enabled, because enabling global IDs is important for keeping track of the attachments and ensuring that they're able to be restored. And then we have here where you can choose the compression quality level. And so I mentioned earlier that attachments can be compressed by up to 70% without any loss in visual quality. That sounds pretty good, but you don't have to just take my word for it. We actually have this compression testing area where you can actually see what different images will look like at different levels of compression. So this is open when you hit this test compression. It just takes a second to load. So for time purposes, I have it pulled up here. You can see we have two sample images that we provide. And you can see here, here's the original image, 4.9 megabytes. And then you can see here, here's the image compressed at level 25. And the compression quality level is the quality level of the output image. So a lower quality level is going to lead to a smaller image. So this is not the percent compression. This is actually the quality level. So smaller means more compression. So it ranges from 20 to 95, with 95, being large, being a larger output image than 20. And you can see here at level 25, it has reduced the size to 1.06 megabytes. And you can see here, there's no discernible difference between these two images. And then you can also see that the dimensions are the same. So the way the compression works is it essentially simplifies the color palette. So a lot of people who are out in the field, taking these photos are using super fancy phone cameras that take these super high quality images that have data that the human eye can't even detect, that create these giant photos with all this information. And a lot of that is pertaining to the colors. That information, a lot of that information can be simplified to reduce the size without, without any visible differences in the quality of the image. So the compression is not cropping the image. It's not reducing the number of pixels. It's not changing the resolution. It's just simplifying the color palette. So, and then, you can go through different levels here. You can also upload your own image. So if you have a particular image that you would like to know, what that image is going to look like when it's compressed, you can upload it here, and then, you'll be able to see at each quality level what it looks like. And then once you have the quality level that you want, you can hit use selected level, and then that will apply the quality level that you've selected here. And then we just have, Symphony will ensure that the same image isn't compressed twice. So it will skip images that it's already compressed. So you can just indicate here how you want to indicate to Symphony that an image has already been compressed. You can schedule the workflow to run either on demand or on a regular schedule. So, these are similar scheduling options to the scheduler application. You can say every X, hours, minutes, days. You can choose certain days of the week or not, or you can just choose to run it on demand. And then you can also stop the workflow after it's been running for a certain period of time. So let's say you are running the task to compress your attachments, and you're running it overnight. And, if you have a lot of attachments, it might take long enough that it would normally still be running when the workday starts. And you want to make sure that that doesn't happen so that you're not having this running during work hours. You can say stop the workflow after it's been running for, let's say, 8 hours. And then regardless of how much progress it's made, it will stop after 8 hours, and then it will not be running during the workday. And then again, because it keeps track of the images that it's already compressed, you could just have it run again the next night, and it will just pick up where it left off. You can choose the log level. So this is how much information is included in the log for the workflow that will report on different things that happen. So things like errors and which services have been processed. You can choose the amount of information here. You can also have it send you an email when the task is done, whether it succeeds or fails or both. And then you can go ahead here and you can either choose to run it right now, or you can run it later, at which point it will be inserted in here. And then when it's time to run it, either it will run on its schedule if it is scheduled, or if it's on demand, you can just go in here and hit run now. And then you'll be able to see the results of these workflows over here as well. And then in addition to that logging, we also have the audit log. So these are for each individual attachment that is processed by each Manage My Attachment workflow. You can you can see here each individual attachment. You can see what operation was done to it. You can see any size reduction that was created. You can see, where the image was, where the originals were back up to. So if it was backed up to the cloud, you can see the specific cloud information here. And then you'll even get a link to the exact location in the cloud storage. So if you want to go track down that original, you can. You can also see the date that it was processed. And then I mentioned earlier, you can restore attachments at any time. So if you want to restore the originals, put them back on the service, you can go ahead and do that. You just select whichever ones you want to restore and then hit restore attachments, and it will just replace the compressed versions with the originals that it pulls out of the backup. And so this is a really valuable way to reduce the size of your attachments, reduce the size of your data store, also just get a handle on, what attachments you have. And, what's really important about this process of optimizing the attachments is that the attachments are going to stay in the same location. They are going to be on the feature service. They're still going to be accessed in the same way in the interface. They are still going to be accessed and visible in the same way in pop-ups and in the field. They are, all the information is going to be stored the same way. Access is going to be the same. So you'll still be able to access the image via your Esri token that's being used to access the layer, the same as before. Everything is exactly the same. Your users out in the field are not going to, see a change in how the images are displayed or how they're accessed. They won't have to click on a new thing or learn a new setup. Everything will be exactly the same. Nobody will even be able to tell the difference, other than the fact that your attachments are going to be a lot smaller and your data store is going to be a lot smaller and more performant. So that's manage my attachments. And then our third dependent application here, Architecture Viewer, allows you to see the architecture of your ArcGIS Enterprise environment. So you can see here, you have your organization here, our Enterprise 3 organization. You can see here, here's the organization machine. This is, again, a small testing environment. For larger production environments, you're probably going to have more machines. There's different servers in here as well, our hosting server and image server. You know, again, a larger organization is probably going to have more of these. And then for each server, you can see the data stores that are, you know, that are part of that server and that services are coming from. So you can see here, in this case, you know, we have these enterprise geodatabases, and then here's the individual enterprise geodatabase data stores. We also have this external sources. So this is, for example, you know, SQL databases that services are published from. You'll be able to see all of the databases that are being used by services in your organization. So, you know, you can see here's a SQL database, and then within the database, you can see the individual tables within the database. And then we start with this condensed view to make things easier to see, but we can also expand it to show everything, and then you'll be able to see the services. So you can actually see which services are coming from which data stores and what servers those data stores are on and what machine is associated with that server. So you can see here, this is the ArcGIS data store, the hosting data store. So these are all the hosted services. And then here are the service items that are published from those services. You can also see over here, you know, we've got our external sources. So you can see, you know, again, here's that SQL database. You can see the individual tables. And then for each table, you can see the individual service that was published from it, and then the service item that was published from that service. And then when you click on these, you'll also be able to see information about them off to the side here. You'll be able to link to it in ArcGIS Server Manager. You'll be able to see whether or not it has webhooks. And then you'll also, in this case for the services, be able to start and stop it. And then for all of these different components, you'll also be able to export the data to CSV. So this gives you an overview of the structure and the architecture of your organization. You can get data on different components in your environment. You can also export that information to CSV. So this just gives you a visual sense of how your organization is structured and all the different components in it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Rachel. So following that, we do have another question for everybody then. After having seen a bit of what Manage My Attachments and the Architecture Viewer does, what would you say you're most excited about? And I know that we've got a couple of people who says that they can't access the Q&A. If you can't access the Q&A, but you do have questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We do have the chat being monitored. Just understand it might be a little bit of a delay before we get to the question, as during the Q&A section, they are going to be looking specifically at the Q&A first. But we are having both the Q&A and the chat monitored for questions. So please feel free to drop your questions in wherever you can, because we want to make sure that we get them addressed for you. Also, while the responses are coming in, if you have attended the webinar we did last month for Symphony, please feel free to just drop like a yes or no chat just as far as whether you had seen that webinar. And if you missed it, just know that we are uploading these recordings to our YouTube channel. And for everybody that registers for our webinar, you will receive a recording after the webinar is completed as well. So I just wanted to make sure that you'll know that we do have these resources available in a few different locations. And even on the future webinars that we have planned, if it ends up to be a time conflict or anything on your side, you can still register and receive the recording afterwards as well. So we see a few different answers coming in here. A lot of people obviously excited about the compression. I know that's definitely one of my favorite aspects of it. The service tree and the web services improve performance. Lots of great answers coming through. So I'm going to give this just a few more moments here. And once again, we do have the Q&A section coming up next. So if you've got any questions that have come up after seeing how this all works, please make sure you let us know so that we can have those addressed during our Q&A. All right, fantastic. Well, at this point then, I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor to Karen. Karen, if you want to go ahead and go over some of these wonderful questions we've got coming through the chat.
Thanks, Tony. I have two pretty similar questions. I guess it would be a question and a follow-up. Michael Bartlett from St. Louis asked if this is both an enterprise geodatabase and hosted data store.
Yeah, so I believe that was in response to optimizing attachments with Manage My Attachments. Currently, the optimization is only for hosted feature services, but we are working on developing a solution for enterprise geodatabases and other types of places where attachments might be stored.
And Melissa Northley from Ocala had a similar question about it being SQL databases or web services. And she said not all of her attachments are shared via web service yet. Would they still be available if they weren't in a web service?
Yeah, so if they were in a feature service, they would be able to be compressed. Like I said, we are working on solutions for other types of attachments. That is something that we hope to eventually introduce in MMA. We also have a professional services team that can do custom work for a situation like this. So if you want to do some kind of image compression or managing images in a SQL database, if it's not shared to the web or if it's not a hosted service, you could also reach out to a professional services team and they could potentially help you with that as well.
Thanks, Rachel. Michael Bartlett that asked the first question also asked, with Architecture Viewer, can you see all the services, the maps and the apps using particular feature class in the data store?
So currently it is just focused on the services themselves and then the items published from that service. If you want to look and see, for example, what services are being used in a web map or a web app, that's actually something you can do in our other product admin tools in our dependency viewer. So we have a graph similar to the architecture viewer that will show your actual content. So it will show, this service is being used by this map, which is then being used by this application. So versus architecture viewer in Symphony is focused on the actual architecture. One day we might actually combine them and, it would be an interesting idea to get, everything from the ground up. But right now they're separate.
Okay. And Eric Simpson asked if Symphony is completely separate software package or if it's included with subscriptions to general GEO Jobe services.
So Tony, I think you can speak to that more.
Yes, so Manage My Attachments is a standalone purchase. It is what we call a dependent application for our Symphony software. So to have access to Manage My Attachments, you do have to purchase Symphony, but it is a premium application that is an add-on to our Symphony product.
Thanks, Tony. One more for Rachel. Richard Bowen asked if there's a limit to the architecture viewer. He says they have a really large installation.
Yeah, so there's no limit. It does take time. The way it works essentially is it caches the data. So, beforehand, it will gather up all the data, it puts it in a Mongo database, and then that way when it's time to load it, it will be able to load that information quickly. So if you have a very large installation, it might take longer to cache, but it should still be able to display it. And we actually have as well with the graph itself, the dependency viewer graph, if there are more than a certain number of, for example, services that are coming from a single node. So, services that are from a single source, if there's more than, I think, maybe 100 or 200, it can get really crowded and it can be hard to read. So that will actually, at a certain number, it will turn into a single node that you then click on that node. You can open a modal and you can get a tree view of all of the services and all of the items that are coming from those services. So we do, in the graph, we have ways to manage large amounts of content so that the graph doesn't get too unwieldy.
Okay, and we have one more. Josh asked if zip files were able to be compressed.
So currently the only file types that can be compressed are JPEG and PNG.
I'm looking to see if we have any more unique questions here. Okay. This one's for you, Tony. Nathaniel Penrod asked, are there maintenance costs for Symphony for our GIS license? And what about for Manage My Attachments?
Yes, so both Symphony and Manage My Attachments, we have a couple of different licensing options for them. So it kind of depends on what interests your organization the most. Because, for instance, we do have annual subscriptions available, but we do also offer perpetual licenses now too. So for anything like that, I'd be happy to set up a meeting with you so that we can go over kind of the details of your organization and see which method best suits your needs.
Thanks, Shaw. I think that's all the questions we have. So back to you, Tony.
Fantastic. I appreciate that so much. Everyone had some really wonderful questions. I want to make sure that I reiterate my apologies, some of the key takeaways about the software. And that is just that it does have the ability to identify and manage a lot of the bloat that comes from feature attachments, explore them in a lot more depth than you normally have, compress them, automate them, and visualizing even just the architecture of your ArcGIS Enterprise environment as a whole. I found a lot of clients here working at GEO Jobe find that particularly useful for planning their migrations and upgrades for their enterprise environments. There's a lot of power that you can have when you're able to very quickly analyze a lot of this information. And we do have some things on the development roadmap. Manage My Attachments is our newest product, so we are constantly looking to add more features and receive feedback from clients on where they'd like to see us improve, not just Manage My Attachments, but all of our products in general. So I just wanted to make sure that we reiterated those key points for you. We do have another question here that I'd like to ask everybody, which is just after seeing everything, having your questions answered, do you feel that Manage My Attachments would be useful to you and your organization? And while this poll is going up, I want to make sure that you all know that we do have our website available where you can submit questions. We have email addresses, which I will recap here after this to let you know how to best reach us and go over any questions maybe we weren't able to get to or anything we might have missed, as well as to set up meetings so that we can go over how these tools can best benefit your individual organizations, as everybody's organizations does tend to have some different needs and variances in them. So I'm going to give this just a few moments here so that everybody can submit their responses. It looks like we've got a lot of great answers coming in. Looks like most people are saying that this would be very helpful for them, which is what we've generally seen. Feature attachments do take up a lot of space within our organization. We wanted to make sure that we could try to help people get the most out of the resources they have available. And that's been one of the biggest goals behind our development of the Manage My Attachments application. All right, so we'll go ahead and recap some of our final details here. So we do have free trials available of not just Manage My Attachments, but all of our products. So if this does look like something you'd like to try out on your organization, please feel free to reach out to us at sales@geojobe.com, and we'll be more than happy to take a look at it. I also did want to say that I saw your message just now, Ian, about ArcGIS Online. We are working on some development to try to bring Manage My Attachments to ArcGIS Online, but there's some differences between interactions with Enterprise and ArcGIS Online that we're wanting to confirm before we roll it out for that. We also, as a reminder, will be doing a prize drawing next week for everyone who's attended the webinar here today. So make sure you're keeping an eye out on your emails, your LinkedIn. In fact, Jonah, who is our marketing director here, will be reaching out directly, I believe, once that raffle has been selected. And once again, sales@geojobe.com is going to be the best place to reach out for if you have any questions regarding the product. And last but not least, I'd like to thank you all for attending today. If you're interested in learning more about GeoJobe as a whole, this QR code provides a link straight to our website. A recording of this will be sent out to everybody who is registered. We will also be uploading it to our YouTube channel. And once again, I encourage you to reach out to us if you have any additional questions, want to try out the products, or just want to get a more in-depth view of how it might be able to help your organization as a whole. But once again, thank you so much for attending today, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.